Hi, I'm Brickroad, and the hodgepodge of numbers on the bottom of the screen there, the string of strange letters and characters and percent signs tells us this must be version 1.4.4 of Final Fantasy I Randomizer. Let's randomize everything. Not literally everything. Actually, the list of things that's randomized is pretty small, but creates a very different way of playing Final Fantasy I. So, right off the bat, you'll see I'm going with a party that's it's got a white mage in it, and I never use the white mage. I advocate against using white mages in vanilla Final Fantasy I. But in Randomizer, they can be very, very helpful because all the shop contents are randomized, which means the magic shop contents are randomized. The magic shops are also randomized between what spells. For example, here we have a level 2 life spell. That's really good. But a level 5 cure spell, that's really bad. And this is really the heart and soul of the randomizer right here, is level 8 Ice 2, but level 3 Ice 3. And then Warp is level 6. So right off the bat, you see there's quite a lot of changes. So all the shops are randomized, all the treasures are randomized, which turns the game into kind of a treasure hunt. Looks like we're starting with this silver dagger, but we can't afford it yet. So we're gonna go have to punch some imps. Silver bracelet here. We're gonna buy this for LARZ the man. Go ahead and equip that. We gotta punch some imps so we can afford a weapon. Actually, we can run up to the Temple of Fiends and see if there's anything good in those boxes. Because slightly cheaper heal potions. Yeah, before we punch imps, let's go see if we can get a treasure out of the Temple of the Fiends that we can equip to deal some damage. The name of the game in Final Fantasy I Randomizer, instead of just knowing the critical path of the game like I do in a typical run through Final Fantasy I, it's more about, it becomes a treasure hunt. All the important items and all of the equipment and everything is randomized throughout the game, which means you're incentivized to go to places in dungeons that you normally would never go to. There's dungeons in Randomizer that I really like that become that I absolutely avoid in vanilla, and there's dungeons in vanilla that you have to play through. You don't have a choice. They're on the critical path of the game. You have to go through them. That if you're lucky, you can completely avoid in Randomizer. I think the biggest example, and we're gonna wipe on these bones. we're just gonna wipe on these bones. Sleep is actually a very, very potent ability because some status effects in this game are based on your hit point level, and right now my hit point level is really, really low, which means I'm gonna stay asleep for a very long time. And we might not even get anything good out of these treasure boxes. Don't know. Let's see, the most extreme example is Castle Ordeals. In vanilla Final Fantasy I, Castle Ordeals is very important to go to as early as possible because you get some pretty powerful equipment there. You get your first spellcasting items. You get a healing staff and some gold we can use to buy some equipment if we can make it back alive. You get your healing staff and the Zeus Gauntlet, both of which are major upgrades. And should I bother saving the game here? I'm not going to. I guess if we wipe on the way back, we wipe on the way back, and that's just how Randomizer do sometimes. But in Randomizer, because Castle Ordeal, it's very concentrated in the powerful equipment that it has. It only has like 10 boxes total. Like, let me think. Actually, maybe less than 10. It's like 7, maybe 8 boxes total. But it's mostly really good stuff. Well, in the Randomizer, it can be literally anything in the game. You can go to Castle Ordeals and find cloth or something else silly. I mean, we're fighting Garland with a silver dagger. We don't have a choice. That's the hand we were dealt in life, so we're just gonna enjoy it. I have to come back here for magic later. After Garland, we should be able to buy that life spell, and then later we have to come back for Ice 3, which is going to be our bread and butter for a while, it looks like. So yeah, in Randomizer, Castle Ordeal, it only has 8 treasures, and those treasures might be tiny amounts of gold, or cloth armor, or like whatever. So, going there, because it's kind of a trek, it's either a very long sailing distance, or a very long airship walk, because you gotta park like a zip code over. It might not be worth the trip. That sucks! Oh, imps with poison, though! So enemy skills are also randomized. I guess we're not fighting imps now. Which means any enemy in the game can end up with the skill of any other enemy in the game. And these imps ended up with a skill reserved for Gas Ds, which are an endgame monster that strikes fear into the hearts of all players. So if Garland has something really nasty, this seed is gonna be a firefight. Alright, let's see how we can slowly punch Garland to death here. Garland might not have anything nasty, he might have toxic or whatever, like, you never know. He could end up with, like, the Fire 3 spell from the carry fight. You just never know what you're gonna get. The only restriction on enemy skills is there are 6 monsters in the game that are set aside that only swap skills amongst each other. And those 6 monsters are the 4 Fiends in the final dungeon, the refights, Chaos, the final boss, and the War Mech, which is like the game's super rare boss encounter in the final dungeon. Enemy stats are also randomized. I forget what the exact scaling is. The default scaling is plus or minus about 50%, I think. So Garland might end up with a 50% lower hit point total, but a 50% higher attack rating, or anywhere inside of that window. It looks like he doesn't have any spells or skills, which is nice, because if he did have something nasty, like if he had just an ability to fire 2 or something, then we would have to level up to win the fight, at least until we could cast probably the Ice 3 spell to take him down quickly. And we'd have to level up on imps that can cast poison, because there's really nothing else around here. We probably have to go level up inside the temple. So what we really want to find this early in the game is either the treasures in the Temple of the Fiends, which we already know, which we already have. There's a little bit of money, but otherwise they weren't that great. There's also a few treasure boxes in Matoya's cave. Let's go ahead and buy the life spell. And we really want one of those treasures, and there's 2 treasure boxes in the Dwarf Cave, and we really want one of those treasure boxes to be the TNT, because that opens up the world quite a lot. I'm gonna go ahead and buy, oh, I can't buy 10 heals. We'll buy a couple of heals, though. Want a couple of heals and a couple of pures. I think it's actually hard-coded, because the shop contents are randomized, but I think Canaria always has heals, pures, and softs, because you never know where poisoning or petrifying monsters are going to show up. Not only are enemy skills randomized, that is, like enemy special attacks that can do status damage, but also the on-touch status damage, because some monsters can poison you just by touching you. And those monsters are also shuffled around. So that's a good and a bad thing. That means that usually the undead encounters that people loathe in this game are not going to be game overs, because their ability to stun lock is usually randomized away. Some other monster gets those abilities, and it's rare that a bunch of monsters that can stun lock are all put into one encounter, which was the original design intents of those creatures. But the bad news is there are, I think, there's one monster that can petrify on touch, the Cockatrice, and there's one monster that can kill on touch, the Sorcerer. And those 2 abilities are randomized as well. We might see Death Touch Wolves, we might see, like already we have Poisoning Wolves, which means we're going to try to rob Matoya here, but we're not going to have a lot of Pure Potion on the way back. It's going to be a challenge, unless we get a large amount of Gil or something else. There's a little bit of Gil. Okay, so an early ribbon is nice. We're going to put that on Goat. There are 3 ribbons in the game, and they're all excellent finds. So I'm actually going to save that here, just in case I wipe on imps on the way back. Although Goat will now take much, much less damage from imp poison attack. Let's see how much, actually, thanks to that ribbon. I mean, it's a considerable reduction in damage, but we're still very low level, so we just don't have the HP to survive it. And let's just see if we can make our way over to Provoca and see if the pirates have anything real nasty. Wow, those mad ponies, though, hit like a truck. You know, I'm just gonna let Pyle die and then revive him when I get to town, I think. Hooah! So, they've also done some bug fixing and some quality of life changes to the base Final Fantasy ROM that I'm using. Because the program to randomize Final Fantasy, it's called Final Fantasy 1 Randomizer. The way it works is you load up a ROM. It's wipe times here. Headed to Provoca. You boot up your Final Fantasy ROM and it shuffles all the stuff around and then spits out a new version of the ROM with a character string on the end that defines what changes you've made. The only way to play it on console is to have, I forget what they're called, there's little flash cart things you can put into an NES machine and use it to boot up ROMs. I think as long as the memory in the ROM matches what the system is expecting, it'll boot up any ROM. So some people I know will randomize a bunch of ROMs for Final Fantasy or even Legend of Zelda or whatever, and then boot them up on an NES. I don't have one of those devices. I like level 3 softs. These two spells being such a high level is kind of a pain, because these are... One of the reasons to take a white mage is to get a really low level heal 3 or cure 4, and I'm not going to get either, so there's that. But if we get a really low level exit, you know what? Level 1 lit 3, I will take it. No problems there. We're going to need this for a little while. So Pyle can deal some damage. There you go, Pyle. Oh, I got money, don't I? No, it's only 2,000. I thought I had more than that. I'm going to check the armor shop and the item shop before... then I'm going to save before the pirates, because the pirates, too, can have just anything. Basically anything. Oh, there's my pro ring. I got to come back for that. Other than that, we're good on armor. But pro rings are in Provoca. I need to do a little bit of magic shopping in Conaria. But some quality of life stuff they added. You can buy 10 items at the shop instead of one at a time. They added a run button. They did some bug fixes, like the temper and saber spells both work now. The critical hit flag on weapons works. That was a pretty hilarious bug which caused some weapons to be way more effective in terms of landing critical hits than they were supposed to be. Ooh! Oh, child! Okay. This is why we saved before the pirate fight. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna give Sam the ribbon. He probably still won't be able to survive a blast of Blizzard, but if we need his Lit 3 to come out before their Blizzard. That's our only real hope in this fight, is for Sam to get his spell out. And thank goodness we had a spell. Well, we would have had to level up until he can use Ice 3. And then come back. Whew! Them are some cold pirates. I don't know what I would have done here if we didn't have any magic. If we didn't have a low-level spell that could hit all these pirates, I don't know what would have happened. Because leveling up until you have enough hit points to just survive that Blizzard attack is not going to happen. Not in this area of the world. Whew! But you can see that ribbon gives him just enough magic defense that he might survive Blizzard. We do have, as an option, leveling up at the Peninsula of Power. There we go. So yeah, if you didn't roll good low-level magic like I did here, I guess that's what you would have to do, is go up to the Peninsula of Power and level up and hope none of the monsters there are nasty. Alright, so the Blizzard Pirates are now behind us. Farewell, Blizzard Pirates. I'm going to give that ribbon back to Goat. I'm going to use some of this money to buy Ice 3 back in Conaria. We also need more items. Did they have piers here? I already forgot. We're also checking item shops because one of the key items in the game is found in shops. Yeah, they have piers. In fact, I'm going to buy 10. And then I'm going to buy some cabins. Cabins are important just to save on the world map as you go. Just in case, like if sharks or sahags or something have something really nasty, and wipes on the sea are very common. Man, Blizzard though, that's a... Is that Frost D that has Blizzard? I think it's Frost D, which are the ice dragons. Again, they're endgame monsters. These odd eyes might be okay though. We're gonna hit the inn again in Canaria, so let's just... Oh, they're just... Instead of using a special ability to paralyze you, they just paralyze on touch. Fair enough. Level 1 Lit 3 is pretty much the best case scenario, because any monsters that are going to be really powerful in the early game, especially the wizards and Astos, if you have to fight them, you might not have to fight them, you might be able to skip them. But Lit 3 will terrorize them. Alright, we've got 2 chances for the TNT to be in the Dwarf Cave, which would be ideal. So let me explain plot progression items. I'm kind of assuming you know the standard Final Fantasy 1 critical path. I'm assuming you're familiar with the vanilla game if you're watching this video. If you're not, I do have a Let's Play series of Final Fantasy 1. It's kind of old now, but it's still good. You know, you might want to go back and watch that. That kind of shows the development of like my personal playstyle and history with the game up to that point. Which hasn't changed much. I think there's 1 or 2 strats that I've learned in the years since. But I'm pretty set in my ways when it comes to Final Fantasy 1. Randomizer, though, is a very different experience. So if you're not familiar with the original game, you might not recognize why this is so interesting. But there are plot progression items. All of the plot progression items you find in treasure chests. The crown, the TNT, the slab, the floater. All of those are shuffled into just the regular treasure chests like this. Got a little bit of gold, and we're going to give this opal bracelet to Goat. Awesome. To get out of the Newbie Sea, you need the TNT. In the vanilla game, to get the TNT, you need the Mystic Key, which means you need the crown, which starts a whole trading sequence, which ends in the Mystic Key. The crown is in a treasure box somewhere in the world. The reason the crown is not necessarily in the Newbie Sea is because, though you need it to get out of the Newbie Sea in vanilla, it's not the actual requirement. The requirement is the TNT. So if you get early TNT, that means the crown can be elsewhere. You actually do still need the crown to complete the game. Turns out, and this is one thing I didn't know about the game because it doesn't ever come up, but there is a locked door in the final dungeon that only opens with the Mystic Key. All the Mystic Key doors are in the Newbie Sea area except for 2. One is in the final dungeon, one is in the Sea Shrine, and a normal player casually going through the game would never ever notice that because it's usually impossible to reach those dungeons without the Mystic Key. But because the final dungeon has a Mystic Key door, you do need the crown to complete the game. So one of the treasure boxes somewhere in the game is going to have the crown. That's all well and good. What getting an early TNT means is you can skip the Marsh Cave. You don't have to go into the Marsh Cave and look for treasure. You can just leave the Newbie Sea area, which gives you access to Melmond and Crescent Lake, and then eventually gives you access to the volcano, which is now the best dungeon in the game. Shoutouts to Benjamin Swan for sponsoring this video, and to everybody who helps make my channel possible by supporting me on Patreon.